Back, everybody. So just kind of giving you a update on where we are in this in the semester. So we are currently in week 6. Yeah, week 6. And so we're going to be going over 2.6 today, hypothetically, as long as we finish 2.4, which shouldn't take too long. And then next week, so I don't know if we'll finish all of 2.6 today, so some of it might bleed over until Tuesday of next week. And then we have our next exam on Thursday. Same kind of situation as before, taken in class, roughly about 5 pages total. And still partial credit, everything like that. With any leftover time on Tuesday, we'll spend the rest of it reviewing and doing some extra practice problems to get prepared. But in addition to that, I recommend going over your the worksheets and the exercises in the textbook as good practice problems to get prepared for it. Formulas will be provided. I'll try and let you know the ones if I can. I'll try and let you know ahead of time which ones will be there. But basically anything that required like a formula to write, like so simple interest formula guaranteed to be on the exam. You don't need to memorize that. Just know what the variables mean. So I equals PRT, I is interest, P is principal or initial amount, R is an APR as a decimal, and T is time, that type of thing. So you need to like ideally know how to use it, but you don't have to memorize every little aspect of it. So the rule of 72. Are there any questions before we get started? Okay, the rule of 72. I'm mainly going over this one legitimately for your homework. I'm not going to test you on this, the rule of 72, because it's a guesstimate rule. I don't think a guesstimate should be on an exam, but it is something to like, it's a useful trick, like so that you can do these things quickly. And so I'm going to say that this is a guesstimate rule. So an educated guess, an estimate or a guess. So a guesstimate. An investment compounded annually with an APR of R% will double after roughly 72 divided by R years. And here, keep R in percent form. This is not going to this is that one situation where we're going to not convert it to a decimal. If you convert it to a decimal, your number will end up being 100 times larger than it should be. So it'll take you like if it would normally take you 5 years, it's going to take you 500 years to double your investment, which is not very feasible. Unless, of course, the billionaires give us the immortality stuff. I see that thing. I dropped my mother-in-law off at the airport, and there's like that sign for like anti-aging serum or whatever. And like I guarantee you that's gonna be for the uber rich. It's like I'm pretty sure I've seen a Doctor Who episode about this situation, and the dude turned into a massive spider. So I don't think that's a good idea. But anyways, so once again, just to reiterate, this is a guesstimate rule. It is not 100%. It's supposed to be like kind of a quick calculation to figure out when your investment would double. An investment or so essentially shorthand, doubling time is approximately 72 divided by R. That's the apparent, like the rough guesstimate. So see here, as an example, if you invest $39,000, who has that much money to invest, but whatever, with an annual, with an APR of 6%, how many years until it doubles? And I just don't want to make you write so much, but it should, in the problem statement, it'll usually say, use the rule of 72. So on your homework, it'll say, use the rule of 72. And that's what this is.
See, now I thought we were done with this one, so I did the homework and I was like, what is the rule of subjects?
Yes. So I'm assuming we probably won't get through all of 2.6 today. So just to let you know, I'm pretty sure the homework is due this week, technically speaking. Yeah. So the 6.2 or the 2.6 homework and the 2.6 quiz will probably be extended until next Sunday. But ideally try and finish it on Monday or Tuesday or on Tuesday night so that you can get that extra practice studying. So in this problem here, the solution would be to use the doubling formula. So here, R is equal to 6%. So double time would equal 72 divided by 6. This is the only time in this class. And this is the reason why I'm not going to test you on this. You can totally expect this to not show up on the exam. This is just for your homework because I don't want you to get it twisted in your head that you like that basically every other formula we're dealing with, R is converted to its decimal form. So I don't want this one here to throw us off. So this is just for your homework. That's it. Which equals 12 years. So with a 6% APR annual return rate, it'll take you roughly 12 years to for $39,000 to double to 78,000. Which, yeah, that's a long time, but it's a lot of extra money. That's 39,000 extra dollars. That's an extra Honda CR-V right there with all the souped up model, not my model, not my basic basic B. I want to say basic something, but I'm not going to say it. I love that car though. But anywho, that's the doubling. That's the doubling time formula. Approximately 72 divided by 12. Is it actually 100% accurate? No, because where's the calculator? The actual doubling time, if I were to do it, so wait. Right. So if I was to actually do it, it'd be 78,000. Natural log, bring that down. What's going on here? That should be natural log 2 divided by 1 plus 0.06. Why is that giving me that number? NT. Something's weird going on, but anyways, it's not exactly 12 years. I'll figure it out in a second, but it won't be exactly 12 years. It might be a little less, a little more. But anyways, let's start off 2.6. One of my favorite sections because it kind of opens our eyes to a few problems. So section 2.6, which is leasing versus buying. So this whole section is broken up into two main parts. One of the first parts is trying to determine whether or not it would be better to lease something or to buy something. And then the other section is about mortgages. So I get really excited to talk about mortgages because they're they're very fascinating, honestly, as a concept. So the first things first is the key purchasing / leasing costs. So when you're ever looking to purchase or lease something, these are the main things you want to look out for. One is the upfront / down payment. So the upfront payment or the down payment that is required for a purchase or a lease. The monthly payment. The length of the loan. Or lease. And the last one is the potential additional charges. Because that could be insurance or whatever, for example, if you and we'll talk about it in a second when we get to mortgages, but the most ridiculous thing in my opinion right now is private mortgage insurance, PMI. If you've ever heard of it, if you don't put 20% down in your house payment, you have to pay for private mortgage insurance until you reach that 20%. So that is there to quote unquote protect the borrower so that if you default on your loan, that PMI insurance takes care of it. Which as long as you're doing as long as you're making your payments or anything like that, that's just free money going to an insurance company for doing nothing. And especially when you consider sure, 20% back in the day when houses were costing a blueberry, it was fine. $20,000, like a $100,000 house, a $20,000 down payment. That's still a lot of money, but you could save up 20,000. But if you're talking about here, or especially in places like New York or California, where a house costs $1 million, do you know anybody off the top of your head who has $200,000 to put down on a house? Absolutely not. That's insane money to me, at least. Maybe to some of those engineers and stuff, that's chump change, but not to the average person. So everyone's going to be paying for PMI. It's a scam. It's a blatant cash grab, and it makes me angry. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. Anyway, so these are the potential, these are the key things to keep in mind. So as an example, Phil leases a Geo Metro. Does anybody remember the Geo Metro? It's wait, you had a Geo Metro?
It looks like a little egg.
Say what?
It looks like a little egg.
Yeah, it's a very, very tiny car. It has 0 horsepower. It just runs on squirrels. That's how they when you try and get onto the freeway, it actually has to stop the AC to get up to speed. And it has rear left wheel drive. It's a great car. It's a great time. But they were very, very affordable. The Geo Metro, by paying $1,750 up front, and $179 per month over 3 years. So this is a 3-year lease. And so that gives us all of these first three: the upfront payment, the monthly payment, and the length of the lease. Now there's an additional stipulation. The lease stipulates that Phil will be charged um 10 cents, so $0.10 for every mile over 40,000. So for every mile that you get charged, every mile over 40,000, you'll get charged 10 cents. So if you travel 40,000 and 10 miles, it'd be $40,000 and one, like you'll be charged an additional $1. Phil expects to travel 51,260 miles on the car. What is the total cost? And I'm trying to reduce, like, I have the original problem statement. It's about a half a page, and I'm trying to reduce it as much as possible. So the problem with these things is they always have very, very long problem statements. And so, as a reminder, with any word problem, always take your time reading it. Take your time to digest everything that you can. Feel free to even bring a highlighter with you so you can highlight pieces that are of importance. So what is the total cost of this lease? So we need to take into account all the pieces of information. This is one of those things that does not have a formula for it. We just have to be able to interpret it and figure out what's going on. So there's an upfront payment. So the down payment is $1,750. There's also the monthly payments. And it's not just $179. It's $179 every month for 3 years. So we'll take that $179 per month and multiply it by 36 months. Take a second to figure out why I said 36. Because 3 years, 12 months in a year, 12. I mean, so you could do it in another, like this is unit conversions. Boom, showing up again. Again and again and again. Unit conversions are the most important thing that I want you to learn from this, because I feel like they're the most fun things to do and they give you the most cool things to bust out at a party. Yes.
I'm doing the homework for this yesterday, not this one, but yesterday. So when they say a month, is that 30 days or 31 days, or does that even happen?
That should not matter.
Okay.
You know what? I actually don't know off the top of my head what the convention is there.
Okay.
If it's every 30 months, I believe they just assume a month. Now, there is something like I decided to skip a section of the information here. 2.5, if you want to go back over it, it talks about how you figure out a monthly finance charge on a credit card, in which case the billing cycle is not just a specific month. It's usually like you have to be careful of the number of days, because in some months we have 31 days, some we have 30, but that should not matter for leases and things like that.
Oh.
At least not for my class. There might be some really stickler companies that would be like, no, it's only 30 days and stuff, but not for my exams or anything like that. So that should be $6,444. And last but not least is the mileage charge. That's an additional. Now, John Doe student, I'm going to write this in pink to say the John Doe student, classic John Doe. He's a silly little guy. He says that it should be $51,260 or miles times $0.10 per mile. Why is he wrong? Yes, Lizette. Exactly right. So you're only charging after 40,000. So it's really only 11,260. And the way I got that is it should be 51,260 minus 40,000 times 0.10. This right here is the miles over 40,000. Because we're only charged for the mileage after the 40,000. So we plug that into our calculator, you should get 1,126. So the total cost of this lease will just be adding up those three numbers. Unless there's any questions on that. The down payment plus the monthly payments plus the mileage charge gives us the total cost. Which was so 1,750 plus 6,444 plus 1,126, which ends up being at the end of the day $9,320. Which I think is around roughly the cost of a Geo Metro. I think the Geo Metros were usually under 10K. But Geo also put out another one. I can't remember. It looked like a baby Jeep. Do I remember the name of it? Do you guys remember? Yeah. It looked so cute. It's like this little tiny Jeep. It's so adorable. But all right. Two more of these things, and then we get to go over house stuff. We get to go over mortgages and house stuff. So another example. Phil is comparing lease options for a Hyundai Accent. So I'm happy to, I believe it's pronounced Hyundai, but it could be Hyundai. I don't know if the Y is particularly accented.
With a lot of Japanese car companies, they kind of Americanize it anyway, so.
True. Japanese is like, from what I remember, like Japanese is very, very straightforward. Like there's no inflection, but I know with Mandarin and a lot of other ones, I think Korean too, there are inflections that are added to it. Like apparently every,
Like it would be Hyundai, but in car commercials, they'll just say Hyundai. That's it.
yeah, just can't trust Americans to understand the accents. I mean, one of my best friends, his last name is Lin, and I tried to say it the proper way, and he was like, "No, there's like 5 different ways to pronounce Lin," and I was like, "Man, that's too much for me." I did not take Mandarin as my college language credit, and I'm thankful for that. That's a hard language. But anyways, so I'm looking at comparing options for a lease of a Hyundai Accent. Very, very cool car. It's a great car.
Be careful, get extra security. Those cars are being often stolen.
Oh, really?
Like,
Well,
70% of them, they're stolen almost like
really?
6 are stolen at least a month.
It's Hyundai's and Kia's right now.
Yeah.
Really?
Be careful. I was a victim kind of to the loss.
Gotcha. I mean, like they just sent a recall on mine that apparently you shouldn't park it in your garage because it might set on fire.
All the electric.
Yeah, the electric parts apparently for my for the Accent of my year for my 2013 Accent, that it could catch on fire in the garage. So, I mean, is it worth it? Like, maybe I should turn it in, but either way, I like that car. So option one. Option one is $0 down. And an MP, is everyone okay with MP meaning monthly payment? Of $210. Option two is $1,250 down. And a monthly payment of $190. And option three is $2,500 down, $2,500 down, and a monthly payment of $155. I did this deliberately, by the way, to show you that sometimes, like, I mean, once again, we saw that one I was telling you about the margarita situation where they were charging $5 for a 12 ounce and $7.50 for a 16 ounce. So it was actually a better deal to get the 12 ounces. So sometimes, I don't know if it's deliberate or if it's just bad math. Sometimes they're trying to cheat you by choosing a quote unquote cheaper option. So
It's National Margarita Day. So
is it really? All right. National Margaritas. Love to get one. All over a virgin margarita, to be clear. I don't drink it all or anything like that. All over 4 years. Determine cost of each. So we're going to be comparing these ones and figuring out which one would be best. Now, I should say best in quotation marks, because if you can afford to put 2,500 down, then maybe that would be the best option. But if you don't have $2,500 just sitting around, because that's like 5 PS5s that you could buy, which is a very good use of your money, buying 5 PS5s, right? Then maybe option 2 or option 1 would be better for you. But in terms of just looking at it mathematically as purely an option of which one's the best option mathematically, which one's cheapest, we can look at it that way. So there's no mention of any additional costs. It just tells us the length of the lease, the money down, and then the cost the cost per month. So we can look at each one. Option 1 is going to be $0 down plus $210 per month times 48 months, because it's 4 years. Which will be 1080 or 10,080. 10,080. $10,000 for a Hyundai Accent or 4 years. Option 2 would be 1,250 plus 190 times 48. So 1,250 plus 190 times 48 ends up being $10,370. So it actually ends up being cheaper to put zero money down. The option 1 is actually a better deal. Hypothetically, unless you don't want to pay the additional $20 every month. And then the people will try to say, oh, that's just 3 cups of coffee every month for 4 years every month. What if I want a little treat? 3, like, that helps me out. 2,500 plus 155 times 48. For the last one, because it's 2,500 down plus 155 each month, 48 months. And that will be $9,940. So option 3 is the cheapest option. But once again, we're taking into consideration that is not taking it like that is assuming that you can put down the 2,500. But it's not that much of a difference at the end of the day, right? It's an additional 80 plus, so $120 more than the second cheapest option. So you put down 2,500 right away to end up saving you $120. Maybe not a good enough deal, as long as you can afford the extra $20 a month. So the last example of leasing versus buying that I want to do is talking about a rental agreement. So a rental lease, a 2-year. A 2-year rental lease with a security deposit of $1,200 has a MP, a monthly payment of $1,629. So a 200 square foot studio. If half the security deposit is forfeited, how much will the lease cost? And it's forfeited because you had a dog, which my dog has not caused any damage to, well, there was the poop storm of 17. Oh my God, I came home, poop everywhere. Cleaning that up was that was rough. Hey, get a dog door. Get a dog door. Highly recommend. If you have a dog, try and get a dog door. It's worth it. It's worth it. Don't pick up poop off your carpet. It's not fun. But like I always find that funny that they make you charge an additional amount for a dog when my dog has caused no damage to an apartment. Besides that. But I was able to take care of that. But like he doesn't ride on the walls like or bang into stuff. But anyways, back to this one. So they give us the length of the lease, they give us the upfront cost, which kind of is an upfront cost. It's $1,200, but you only get half of it back. So 50% of deposit is not returned. So 50% of, we're trying to find A in the formula A equals P times B of your security deposit. So 50% of 1,200. So 0.50 times 1,200 equals $600 lost. So that you have to pay. You'll get $600 back, but you have to that has to be paid. That is an additional cost of your loan. You get $600 back, but you still had to pay $600 for the apartment. And then $1,629 per month times 24 months. That ends up being $39,096. Right. So the total cost of lease will be the monthly payments for 2 years. At $39,096 plus the $600 that you won't get back. And that ends up being $39,000 and $696.
I think the 0.5.
So it says half the deposit. Excellent question. So because it's half of the deposit, that's 50%. You could also write 1/2 times 1,200. That's also true. All right. Any questions on the leasing agreements and stuff like that? So you're usually trying to compare these things. They try, like, I mean, if you've ever bought a car, they really try to throw a bunch of numbers at you to overwhelm you. And they keep trying to give you like, they'll make you agree with things and then say, oh, but you have to also pay for this or whatever. So always go in with a set amount that you're willing to pay And do not buckle, do not buckle. They'll try to pull that stupid card, like, it's only that's just 1 cup of coffee a week. Yeah, but I had a set limit that I wanted to pay. I'm not gonna pay any more than that. And you'll see them buckle.
How do they even determine like whether you get your deposit?
I actually have no clue. Landlords are crazy. Landlords are crazy. It's crazy business. Some will do it just because, others will be actually good landlords and it will only take it away if you actually made some damage, not just like some holes in the wall for making your apartment your own. But I mean, mine gave me most of mine back in Ohio, which was nice. But I've had some ridiculous stories from my students in the past. So I was specifically referring to car payments in the thing I was saying. One of my colleagues is very, very good at getting nuance in those situations. He had some genius ideas that I never thought. Like, you go in, you scope out the car you want, and it's like, well, I really want this model, the not model that you want. So like there's a gray car that you like, there's the gray version that you really want. But you say, I really want the blue model. And like, I don't have the blue model. Well, I guess I'll take the gray model, but I mean, I don't want that one specifically. Can you do anything for me? So he's playing mind games. Really, really clever thing. I'd never thought about doing that. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. Now on to housing stuff, mortgages and housing recommendations. So these are, I mean, they need to be updated because it's not in line with the current state of America. But after the housing, the crash of 2008, they started making these housing recommendations. So housing recommendation number 1 that should be followed by mortgage companies if they're going to provide a like a loan or anything like that. And you do not need to have the housing recommendation memorized. If there's a problem on an exam, I will provide it. I will provide the 2-minute terminology. And what the housing recommendation says is that the amount a family should spend on housing, on monthly housing expenses, should not exceed 30% of their gross monthly income. Sure. I would be surprised to see that for the average American right now. I would be surprised to see that, but back in the day, maybe like before, how like COVID made prices go out of control. But maybe back in 2009, this was actually reasonable to expect. So ideally, your housing should not cost you more than 30% of your monthly income. Just as a note, gross means how much your full take home is, whereas net is how much you would take home after taxes. So this is saying if your gross monthly income was, I mean, if your gross monthly income is $100,000, you probably take home usually anywhere from about 75 to 80,000, depending on the situation, depending on the state, local and state taxes and so on and so forth. But that is housing recommendation number 1. So 30% of your gross monthly income. So that, keep in mind that of gross monthly. So that's telling you about percentages. So example, Jack and Jill have a total gross monthly income of $7,250. That's their gross monthly income. Not their salary, not their yearly income. Based on recommendation based on recommendation number 1, how much, what is the max they should spend on housing? That down. Obscenely long problem statements, I know. Jack and Jill have a total gross monthly income of $7,250 based on the recommendation number 1. What is the max they should spending? So 30% of their gross monthly income. So we want 30% of 7,250, telling you that it's a percent problem. I will provide this percent formula on the exam, by the way. A equals PR, PB. I will provide it, but I'm sure we've done enough problems that we probably have it already memorized. But even still, I'll still provide it. So A is equal to P times B. So A is equal to 0.30 times B, 7,250, which ends up being $2,175. So they should spend no more than that. Ideally, they want to spend less, so they have more money to spend on other things, going out to eat, actually enjoying life, instead of having to spend way too much on housing. But there's where it is. Now, I wanted to do one more of these examples before moving on to next thing is mortgages, right? Yeah. Okay. I wanted to do one more because I wanted you to notice the difference in verbiage, just so that you're not blindsided by it if this shows up on an exam or whatever, but also on your homework and your quiz, because we have to be very careful of the verbiage. Example. Here, John has a gross salary of $68,000. How much should he spend on housing? I'm just trying to really shorten the verbiage so we don't have to write based on housing recommendation number 1. So do you see the big difference? Previous one gave you their monthly gross income, whereas this gives you his gross salary, his yearly salary. Let's write it down. So we're given salary, but we need monthly income. But that's not too terrible to find. All we need to do is just take his gross salary, his yearly thing, and divide it over 12 months. So $68,000 per year divided by 12 months gives us $5,666.67 per month. Take his gross salary, divide it over 12 months, and then you get that he is making a gross salary of $5,600 per month before taxes. Now we do now we can do the housing recommendation since we have his gross monthly income. I will make sure, by the way, to like, if there is a problem at all, I can neither confirm nor deny the existence of one of those problems on the exam, but if there is one, I will make sure to kind of underline those words. So gross monthly income, and I'll bold and italicize it to say like, hey, make sure you're remembering this is monthly. The housing recommendation represents monthly. And if the problem is the salary, I'll make sure the salary is underlined so that you know the distinction there. So 0.30, 30% of his gross monthly income. So 30% of 5666.67 gives me $1,700 and 0.001. So that's approximately $1,700. If we round to the nearest cent. So rounding to the nearest hundredth place, you'll get that.
Month?
Yes, per month. So they should not spend more than they should try to avoid spending any more than $1,700. That's a recommendation, by the way. It's not like these were recommendations. They weren't like being very, very super strict about them. Like they were allowing people to like a little bit more like a buffer zone, but that was what they were going for back in the day. All right. Now I need to grab something really quick. So I'm going to go to a previous semester just for a second to steal it. Where is it? I think it's right here. Steal this. Copy, right? Which one of these is copy? No, that's not copy. They changed it on me that. Okay, cool. That's what it is. There we are. All right. So now we get to my favorite section, like besides unit conversions, one of my favorite sections of Math 120, which is mortgages. Which the book mentions, by the way. So if you're looking at the Latin roots of this, mort means death and gage means an agreement. So this is a death agreement. A mortgage is literally a death agreement. So you're supposed to be paying for it for the rest of your life. Just a creepy concept, but maybe we should call it something else. You don't need to write this, but the actual formula for mortgage payments is this. Capital A, which is the total amount of your mortgage, is equal to P, which is your monthly payment, times in parentheses, R divided by N, times 1 plus R divided by N raised to the NT, all divided by 1 plus R divided by N raised to the NT minus 1. That is the mortgage calculator. If you want to figure out your monthly payment, you have to plug it into that formula, which is pretty insane. So you're not going to have to use that. You're not going to have to use that in this class. I don't like, there are far too many places where you can make a small error. And plus there's plenty of calculators out there for this. So I'm going to show you kind of a quick way around it. So instead of this monstrosity, we will use an amortization table. An amortization table. That's what that formula is actually called. It's not the mortgage formula. It's actually called the amortization formula. I don't know what that word means. Sorry, I'm not a business person. But amortizations, that's how they figure out car payments and everything like that. They use this formula. And the reason for that, the reason why it's so complicated, if you're curious, is the fact of the matter is there's an APR on your mortgage or on your car payment or whatever. And so that interest, that APR gets charged compounded monthly is usually is the option. So every month you pay a certain amount, but then interest is charged for not paying it off immediately, which whatever, BS, but whatever. So the formula is so complex because it has to take into account that every month that you pay it, you have to add more interest on. It's very like if we ever get our own houses based on what's going on, if we're ever to afford one, your first mortgage payments end up being very demoralizing. You'll find out because about more than 50% goes to interest for the first like 10 years of your mortgage payment. Like more than half of your payment goes to interest, which is very frustrating. But here is the chart. You don't need to keep it in your notes, but it's right here. You do need to have this memorized though. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Could you imagine? Could you imagine? I will provide this chart on the exam. I will provide this chart on the exam. You don't have to have this memorized. Just know how to use it, and I'll show you how. So the question that you may be wondering right now, what does this chart do? What does this chart do is an excellent question. So if you notice, it says monthly mortgage loan payment per $1,000. There are plenty of amortization tables. Some of them are per 500, some of them per 1,000. Some of them, notice that ours are only rates that increase by 0.25. But this can be like, we can extrapolate this. There are bigger ones. There are bigger tables that do it every 0.1. But that would be a very, very, very big chart. So any problem on our homework and on an exam will always be one of these nice numbers, like 5.5% or 5.75. There will never be a situation where I ask you to do 5.8%. So the numbers in white represent payment factors. For a given rate, so I'm going to underline payment factors for a given rate and time period. So what those numbers do is they tell you to multiply, you multiply by this number to figure out your actual monthly payment. And I'll show you the formula for it. By the way, this is on page 167 of the text. So if you're like when you're doing your homework or quiz, please like either take a picture. Like, you can take a picture of it if you'd like right now, and then like if there's a question on your homework or your quiz, you can zoom in. You can just use this on your phone. So I'm going to zoom in real quick so you get a good view of it. So if you want to take a picture, you're more than welcome to. Just to have it so that you don't have to keep looking back at your notes back and forth.
And for the sake of like homework problems, it's always going to be within this range.
It should be. If it isn't, let me know. And I will work on fixing that because it's supposed to be that. I mean, every once in a while the coding gets off, but it should be always increments. Like it should either always be a 15, 20, or 30-year loan, and it should always be in increments of 0.25.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, it goes up to 7.75. I'll just make sure it's not going to be 8.25 or something.
No. It should stay within those ranges. And if it doesn't, let me know and I will fix it immediately. So you can get in the textbook though, so don't worry. But the formula is a monthly mortgage payment. So mortgage payment formula is going to be MP, your monthly payment, is equal to the payment factor times the loan amount divided by 1,000. That is what this does. So it figures out how much you like what you should pay per $1,000 of your loan. So that's why it says loan amount divided by 1,000, because you're figuring out how many 1,000s go into your loan amount. And then you're going to multiply that by the payment factor. And I'll show you how to do this with some problems. The y divided by 1,000 is because these payment factors are per $1,000. If it was per $500, we divide by 500. If it was per $100,000, we divide by 100,000, and so on and so forth. So there are many different charts. This is the one we'll be using, but they all follow the same general rule. So I'm going to be bringing this along with us as we go along for the problems that we deal with. And I will provide this formula for us, by the way. This formula will be provided. And it'll be like right next to the chart. It'll be right next to the chart, so you know that it corresponds to this. Just to know that the white numbers are the payment factors. So, example. Compare the MPs, the monthly payments of a $375,000 loan with the following conditions. Number one is an APR of 5% over 20 years. Two is an APR of 6.25% over 30 years. And three is a 4.75% over 15 years. So I did this one specifically so that we could use the payment factor 3 times in a row, right back to back, to know how to use the chart. Just write that down. One of the fun things we're just after we do this one, we're going to figure out how much you pay in interest on a home loan. Because it might shock you a little bit. It might shock you. And then sadly, afterwards, I have to defend banks for a little bit, which I don't want to do, but I have to do a little bit. I am not a bootlicker for banks, but there is a justification for it a little bit. So solution. So I'm going to post the thing again so we can see it over here. A little bit smaller so it can actually fit. For whatever reason, this thing won't allow me to put it on a half of a page. Like if I try and put it, like you see that big line, if I go like this, it won't let me do it. So we'll just keep it there. So for number one, that was at 5% over 20 years. So what we do is we just find the intersection. 5%. 20 years, that's my payment factor. That's how you read the chart. So you look for your percentage, the intersection of your percentage and your year amount. So my payment factor is 6.5996. So my monthly payment here would be my payment factor, 6.5996 times my loan amount, $375,000 divided by 1,000. And as per usual, we're going to round to the nearest cent. So 6.5996 times 37500 divided by 1,000. I get a monthly payment of $2,474.85. It gives us a nice round number already. It gives us to the nearest cent without us even trying. That's good. So the monthly payment for a $375,000 house over 20 years is $2,400. Typically speaking, the larger the like the shorter the loan, the higher the mortgage payment, because you're gonna have to pay off that money faster, but you'll pay less in interest. 2 was an APR of 6.25%. So we find the 6.25% and it's over 30 years. So our payment factor is 6.1572. So the PF, the payment factor, 6.1572. And it's the same calculation, except with a 6.1572 instead of a 6.5996. So the monthly payment, 6.1572 times 375,000 divided by 1,000. And that ends up being $2,308.95. So you end up paying about $170 less every month, but you have to do that for 10 more years. Give it your choice. 3. So it's a 15-year loan at a 4.75. 4.75 here, 15 here. So that's our payment factor, which is 7.7783. So the monthly payment will be 7.7783 times 375,000 divided by 1,000, which ends up being $2,916.86. So if these 3 options were listed to you, I would probably choose either the first or the second, because it looks like that. Yes, you're going to be able to pay it off 5 years sooner with the last option, but you have to pay an additional, like if you're comparing 1 and 3, you're going to have to pay an additional almost $400 every month. Once again, that's a PlayStation 5 every month that you can pay for, that you give your friends. It's a good way to measure money. How many PlayStation 5s it will afford you. So, does everyone understand how you use the chart now? So you look for the cross section, the intersection of those 2 numbers, the percentage and the yearly amount, and then you multiply that by your loan amount divided by 1,000. So now I want to show you the terrible thing about mortgages. Determine the interest paid on a 30-year loan of $385,000 at an APR of 4.5%. I'm putting it here so that we have it for reference. So determine the amount of interest paid. So in order to figure out the amount of interest we paid, we need to know how much we're paying each month so we can figure out how much we paid in total over the course of the loan. And this would be a really, really good problem that would be broken up into 2 parts on an exam. Maybe part 1 is figuring out your monthly payment, and then part 2 is figuring out the interest paid. So maybe this would be a good thing to practice. Maybe. Just maybe. It might happen on the exam. Maybe. Definitely, definitely. So first find MP, the monthly payment. So for this one, it's an APR of 4.5%. And it's a 30-year loan. 5.0669. So your MP will be 5.0669 times 385,000 divided by 1,000. And that should give you $1,950.76. So a monthly payment, that I'm not going to box that in. I'm going to underline that because that's important, but it's not our answer. That's our monthly payment. The year I was born, huh? Kidding. I'm not 73. Pretty good for 73 though. So the total amount paid is going to be 19. I'll do this. So 1950.76 times 12 times 30. Try and figure out why that would be the case. Yep. That's per month times 12 months to give me the yearly amount that I pay in my mortgage times the 30 years. Unit conversions. Once again, I could write this out as unit conversion as 1950.76 per month times 12 months in a year times 30 years in loan. But if you write that out, you get a grand whopping total of $702,273.60. So for your $385,000 loan, you pay $702,000 at the end of your period. So that means that the interest would be $702,273.60. That's the amount you paid minus the loan amount. This is total paid minus loan amount. And that ends up being $317,273.60. That is the interest paid. So let's see here, 300.217, so 237, 2.60 divided by $499 for PlayStation 5. That's 635 PlayStation 5s. You could literally provide a school with every kid with a PlayStation 5. But in all seriousness, let's digest that number for a second. That means that if you have a 30-year loan, you basically pay for your house twice. Now, a couple things about that. What I will tell you, and there are plenty of other formulas, we won't get into them, but you can figure out how, there's a formula to figure out how much interest you pay on each month of your loan at any given time. And what I can tell you is that for the first 10 years of your loan, that's about when you're paying the most in interest. And then after that point, it starts to drop off and you stop paying as much in interest. There are several ways to combat it. You can pay a little bit extra each month to reduce the amount of the loan. You can pay off the interest as it accumulates. That can reduce it. But at the end of the day, it will be a pretty substantial number. Now, in the defense of banks, for a very brief second, you have to understand that they are providing you with $385,000, hoping that you will pay them back. And if you default, they're out that money. So the reason, and statistically speaking, it's usually within the first 10 years that a person will default on their loan. So that's when the most interest is paid to recoup any potential losses. Is that a fair amount? I don't think so, personally. But like, I think that mortgage loans should be a lot lower of an interest rate. But here we are.
Is there a way around finding different interest rates?
So you can reduce the interest rates, like you can find lower interest rates. You can, if this was a 15-year loan, you'll find out that you pay it in less. And there's a really, like, I wish we had the time to go into it, but there's ways to figure out, like, you can go ahead and like figure out if you pay an additional $100 each month, it ends up being like cutting off 3 to 4 years of your loan. So if you're willing to pay an extra $100, you can cut off about 2 to 3 years. If you pay an additional $200 each month, you can probably cut off more than that. And it's like, if you do it during the beginning of your loan, it's especially useful because that's when all that interest is being paid. There are some other tricks that can happen, like depending on your loan. Some loans, they do their interest daily. So if you pay off the interest every day, then no interest, like that, like, which isn't a lot at first, but it snowballs after 30 days, after a month. So if you keep paying it off each day, that little bit extra, you end up paying less overall. It ends up being a much sizable, like a much bigger sizable amount towards the monthly, the total amount of the loan over time. That being said, many banks don't allow that. But they will allow you to pay an extra a little bit every month. And that will help you because during the first couple of years, when that interest, when that principal is so high, your monthly payment goes mostly towards interest. So if you put an additional 100, that puts an additional 100 purely towards the principal amount of the loan instead of that going to interest. So that is a way to bypass it a little bit. But it's one of those things. There are those financial gurus, just to talk about this for a second, because I think it's worthwhile talking about. The financial gurus will tell you that's a bad idea to pay additional money. Just spend that money in the stock market. I don't necessarily like that. I don't really like to gamble. But they'll say like, oh, just put it in the S&P 500 because that will have an annual growth of like 10% or whatever, which is one way to consider it. There are ways to get around it, and there's plenty of people on YouTube who have made videos on this stuff. So highly recommend if you're looking into working on a mortgage, they have certain ways to reduce the costs. But at the end of the day, if you're paying for it out of pocket, you're looking to pay roughly about double after the fact. It's not fair, it's not right, but it is what it is right now. I don't know why they've raised the interest rates so much. Like, I think it should, like, personally, but I'm not the president. Mainly because I'm not 80 years old, apparently. But if I had my druthers, I'd probably reduce that interest rate down to about 2%. That would be a reasonable amount. Or maybe we could actually stick to simple interest rates. Maybe that would be a good way to help the average American, you know. Well, yeah, you know, that's, we don't, like, I mean, what does the average American do that a corporation doesn't do, right? They get to default on their loans. They don't have to pay their loans back. It's like so many companies did not pay their loans back, where you guys taking out student loans, you have to pay that back because you should have known better, right? You took that money out. You should have known better. Not the companies, though. They're fine. I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter about that concept at all. I'd be fine with it if everyone had to pay it. I'd be fine if everyone was treated fairly, including corporations. Probably more stringent on the corporation. But anyways, I'm sorry. I'll stop being angry. Okay. Sorry to take a side note there. All right, looking at the time. We won't be able to start up a problem, but we can definitely write the key expenses. So the key expenses of a mortgage. So Sadly, a mortgage isn't just the monthly payment. There are several other things that come into it. Number one is the mortgage payment. Number two is real estate / property tax. And this, by the way, real estate tax or property tax is not based on your loan amount because you usually have to put down money, like you put a down payment on. But that's not how real estate is, like property tax is calculated. This is based on the actual price of the house, not the loan amount. And it is calculated annually, then divided by 12. For monthly payment. As an aside, if you don't know this, I want people to be as outraged as I am about this one because this is something that maybe not many, like, hopefully you know, but if you don't, this is a BS thing. Property taxes are what pay for your schools, your public education. Property taxes based on your area, which is wrong. It is very, very wrong. That means that a very, very high income area gets more in taxes to its schools than a lower income area. So that is not fair. And I hope that everyone else is as outraged as I am. That money should all be calculated total, then divided amongst all the districts. So like, maybe that can go on a ballot at some point. So please be outraged about that if you're not. It is not fair. The last, let's see, what time is it? Okay, we got, the next one is homeowners insurance, which does nothing for you except try to not pay you for the things that happen in your house. 4 is an HOA, which can be bad, can be good too, If you have a good homeowners association, if the people in charge of it are good, they can keep things proper.
Oh, fine.
Yeah, you like. There's a lot of bad ones, and then there's a lot of there's some good ones.
I have to park the next door. and leave it there. He's in there.
Oh, of course, can't have a car in front of it. That would be too. That's too practical. And the last one is private mortgage insurance. Or PMI. So those are the things that we will keep into account. And if there's like, we'll see an example of this next time on Thursday. So your homework will be extended for 2.6. It won't be due this week. It will be due next week. And we'll finish this off. I think we have 1, 2, 3 more pages of stuff, so it shouldn't take too long. I write big, so 3 pages is not actually 3 pages. But we'll finish that off next time. If any questions in the meantime, please feel free to email me. Otherwise, start studying when you can, doing some of those worksheets and those textbook problems, and then we'll come back next time, finish this off, and then do some review. Okay, guys? Have a great rest of your day, a great weekend, and I will see you guys on Tuesday.